Today, we're going to dive into one of history's most fascinating paradoxes, a letter that for nearly 2,000 years has completely flipped our ideas about joy and purpose on their head.
So let me ask you something, a question we've all wrestled with. Where does true joy really come from? I mean, really? Is it from success, comfort, freedom? Well, the letter we're about to unpack offers let's just say, a radically different answer.
And here's the twist. This is the core paradox that this entire explainer is built on. Imagine a letter just overflowing with words like joy and rejoice. You'd probably guess it was written on a vacation, right? Maybe from some peaceful retreat? Nope, not even close. This was written from inside a Roman prison cell. So that brings us right into our first section, where we're going to unpack this absolutely shocking premise. How on earth is it possible for someone facing imprisonment, maybe even execution, to write with this kind of deep, unshakable joy? Well, the author, a guy named Paul, he doesn't leave us guessing. He comes right out and says that he prays with joy. And in the very same thought, he mentions his imprisonment. He literally weaves together joy and chains. It's wild.
I mean, this is a total rewrite of how we normally see the world. Our gut instinct tells us that suffering equals misery. It just makes sense. But for Paul, it's the complete opposite. He doesn't see being in prison as this terrible setback. No, he sees it as an opportunity. He claims his situation has actually helped his message spread, making others even bolder.
And this quote, this gets to the absolute core of his entire mindset. It's probably the most famous line from the whole letter. See, for Paul, life is all about one central purpose. And because of that, even death isn't a loss, it's a gain. When you have a worldview like that, things like being in prison, they just lose their power to steal your joy.
Okay, so where does this incredible perspective even come from? This isn't just, think positive stuff. It's based on a very specific blueprint, something Paul calls the mind of Christ.
And this is a crucial point. Paul isn't just making up a new philosophy from scratch. He's pointing to a very specific example. He's urging his readers to adopt the exact same mindset, the same humble attitude that was demonstrated by Jesus.
This passage, which scholars often call the Christ hymn, shows us exactly what that attitude looks like. It lays out this incredible four-step journey, starting from the highest possible place, in the form of God, then willingly becoming a servant, then humbling himself all the way to death on a cross, and finally being exalted by God above all else. The message is clear. The path to true glory is paved with humility. And what's the result of adopting this mindset? Paul says it allows people to shine as lights in the world. In what he calls a crooked and perverse society, this humble, others-focused way of life stands out like a beacon, showing a completely different way to live.
Now, when you start thinking this way, it leads to a total reevaluation of what you consider valuable. It's a radical shift, all about losing what the world values in order to gain something that has real, eternal significance.
You have to understand, before all of this, Paul had a seriously impressive resume. He came from the right family, had an elite education, and was incredibly devout as a Pharisee, a member of a very strict and respected religious party. In his culture, these were the ultimate markers of success. Okay, now check out this complete 180. Everything he once listed as an asset, his heritage, his religious status, his flawless track record, he moves it all over to the loss column. And in the gain column, just one thing, but it's everything to him, knowing Christ. And this isn't some passive thing. Paul describes it as an active, relentless pursuit. He talks like an athlete, straining with total focus toward a completely new finish line, a different kind of prize. This new value system is anchored in a brand new identity. Paul reminds his readers that their primary allegiance isn't to Rome or any earthly kingdom. No, he says, our citizenship is in heaven. And a perspective like that, well, it changes everything about how you live your life right now. So these are some big, mind-bending ideas, right? But what's the practical application? In our final section, we're going to see how all this translates into a powerful, daily practice for finding contentment no matter what's going on around you. Paul brings it all home with this powerful command. And notice, it's not a suggestion, it's a directive. Rejoice. And not just when things are going great, but always. He's talking about a conscious decision, an act of your will that rises above your circumstances. He then lays out a practical game plan for how to do it. It's a strategy for dealing with anxiety. Replace worry with prayer and gratitude. Then you have to be intentional. You focus your thoughts on things that are true, honorable, pure, and praiseworthy. The result, he promises, is a kind of peace that just doesn't make sense from a worldly point of view.
And all of this leads to the ultimate goal: contentment. And we're not talking about the kind of happiness that depends on what's happening to you. This is the secret to being satisfied whether you have plenty or nothing. And get this, Paul says he learned this secret. It didn't just happen automatically.
And here it is. This is the source of his strength. You've probably heard this famous verse before, but it's not about having the power to achieve any dream. In context, it's the key to his contentment. His ability to face any situation, from having a lot to having nothing, all of it comes from a power that isn't his own. And so, we end right back where we started, with a question that challenges pretty much everything about our modern world. This ancient letter from a prison cell forces us to ask, in a world completely consumed by what we can gain, could it be that the greatest prize of all is actually found in what we're willing to lose?